Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now we've got this 2006 Opel Astra, this 1.8 with us again. The engine light was on. Now you might know we did all the other things we did head gasket, we did head bolts, we did everything to it. Timing belts, radiators. The engine light is on. The engine light was on when it came in. They needed the car back, so they've taken the car back and they've now essentially had a chance to bring it back to me, and we're going to see what's wrong. So what I'm going to do is just quickly get my Vauxhall out, just because it's quick, it's easy. See, if I turn the ignition on, otherwise it won't scan. See what's going on. I might have to rescan this because I could have gone past the point where it needed to go in. Now we have 4 faults. Let's see what we've got. Air mass circuit, O2 sensor 1, O2 sensor 2, so heating circuits, evap, purge solenoid circuit, and that's it. So we have a P0100, a P0135, a P0141, and a P0443. So there's all our codes. There we go, you can see them all now. Right, okay. So what I'm going to do now is, because it might not come through on camera, but it's hunting a bit, it's kind of a fish bite miss on it. I'll just see if I can get the camera in there so you can see what I mean. Hopefully you can see that. It's kind of moving up and down. Get some live data and see what we can see. Now, I don't know what PIDs this is going to have on it, but hopefully should have some, so we can get an idea. But we know that the head gasket was gone. We know this was pouring water into the exhaust, so that could have something to do with the O2 sensors. So what I'm going to do is let's look at our fuel trims. Now it's only the heater circuit on the O2 it's showing me, so the O2 sensors might be working. Air intake temperature and mass. And the reason why I'm taking the air intake temperature is because this is, it's either a 5 or 6 wire sensor, I can't remember, but essentially the airflow meter has the air intake temperature sensor built into it. That's why it has more than 3 wires. So essentially there's two sensors in one. If I just go to view data, now that's interesting. Our MAF, as you can see, is 0, completely dead. Our air intake temperature sensor is working. Well, it's reading, should I say, 23 degrees, which would be in and about right. So, well, maybe not, maybe it's a bit high. Short term minus, well, it's not really heated up for me to check, but we are minus on both short term and fuel trim, but the car isn't at operating temperature. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pull out a wiring diagram for the MAP sensor. We can check the powers and grounds, we can do all that, and we can see what's happening, and kind of go from there. That's all we can do, really. Sorted. Right, people, something very interesting. Here's our MAP sensor. It's a 4-wire sensor. Here is our wiring diagram for our MAP sensor. As you can see, we've got our MAP sensor, we've got our air intake temperature sensor. We have a power coming in, controlled by the ECU, and this is our signal wire. But what is very interesting, get this up closer for you, is, so this is the power coming in, pin number 4, pin number 1 is computer ground, pin number 3 is signal, and then we've got our signal wire for our air intake temperature. But look at what we have here. Now, these are O2 sensors, and this is the purge solenoid. So, that's very interesting. And as we can see, if you follow the power wire from fuse 26 comes down to the MAP sensor, and then it actually feeds everything. So that one feed feeds everything. So what do we have? Do we have a split in the wire from the fuse to the, well, it has to be from the fuse before the map sensor really, because if we had a split in the wire afterwards, then we would still have power here. So this is going to be interesting. So what I'm going to do, fuse 26. So let's go to fuse 26 before we do anything and see what happens. This could be kind of a boring diagnosis, because if you think about it, we've got a power issue. Pin number 4, which is there, which is the red wire, should have power. Just let me just double check that. And what I can also do is I can unplug the sensor and see if the sensor is pulling the power down. So I'm going to do that first because it's quick and it's easy. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use oh yeah, that's the wrong one. I put a powerful bulb in that, so we need a one that. I'm messing around with that test lead, doing something with it. I'll be showing that in a future video. Now, strong bulb illumination, so it is on. Let's put this on to battery. Negative. Come across to our map sensor. We are going to back probe pin number 4, which is our power wire. Turn our ignition on. Now, does our test light light up? As you can see, no, it does not. Pin number 1 is our ground. So let's just make sure we've got a good ground. Change our test light over to positive. Just so we can narrow down. There we go, look at that. You see that? Oh, a nice strong light. So we know we've got a good ground. Okay, so we've no power at all. So what I'm going to do is, just let me put this back in, make sure it is definitely probed right. Yeah, no light. Unplug it, just in case something is happening internally in the sensor. If I can unplug it. It's unplugged. And still, now I'm not pushing the pin down for anyone starts. So make sure, no, we've still got nothing. Right, so I'm suspecting then we've definitely got a power issue. So we're going to go to the fuse box, pin number 26, oh sorry, fuse number 26. Let's see, oh there we go, let's see what the story is. Right, these are all numbered, 34, 35, 36, 28, there's no numbers here, so it must be 20, this is 22. There's only 2 numbers here at the, just let me get you into them so you can see what I mean. So as you can see, we've only got 28 there, no numbers there, and 22 there, no numbers across. So I'm presuming it's 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, this 10 amp fuse there. Right, need some pliers, 10 amp fuse. Ho ho, boom people, boom. Fuse has blown. Now, there's a but. Why did the fuse blow? We could still have a problem with the map sensor, with O2. We could have a problem, well, with anything really on this circuit. When you think about it, we know we've got a good ground coming from the ECU to the map sensor. We know we've got reading coming from the intake manifold because we can see that on our scan data. So, but we don't have power, and the reason we don't have power is because the fuse is blown. But we've got to ask ourselves, Why is the fuse blown? I just don't want to go and put a fuse in because we could end up doing more damage. Now, I have got a gadget so we can avoid that, but we've got to now think. We could have a potential issue with any one of these well, we've got the air mass here, we've got the solenoid, and we've got two O2s. Do we have a short in an O2? Do we have a short in the solenoid? Do we have a short in the map sensor? There's a few ways you could actually do this. You could literally unplug everything, put the fuse in, and plug it back, plug each module back in individually. And if the fuse pops, let's say the fuse pops when you put, I don't know, say an O2 sensor on, well then look at that O2 sensor. If you put that in first and it pops the fuse, disconnect it, put another fuse in and connect the other three. If the other 3 or 4 or 2, whatever you happen to have on your system, doesn't pop the fuse, that'll give you a good indication to what part to look at. But what I can do, because I've got a gadget, is I can actually plug my gadget into this fuse holder and we can monitor the live amp readings coming through, and we can be wiggling the wires, we can be taking it for a drive, letting it heat up, letting it go through cycles and seeing. With this one, we know we had a problem with the head gasket, and we know it was dumping lots and lots of water into the exhaust. So did that, you know, cause a problem with the O2 sensors and cause the fuse to pop? No point just putting a fuse in. We could scope it. We could also put it on the scope to see what it's drawing, but I've got another gadget we can kind of do first and see. So let me get that hooked up and ready and we'll continue. Sorted. Right, and here it is. These are brilliant. I think they're kind of hard to get now, but essentially what we can do with this is we can put this in the system and it replaces our fuse, and we can have a live reading of the amps coming through our circuit. So as you can see, we've got our 2 different types of fuses. Also, we've got these other connections, which actually Keith from New Level Auto got me them connections because I couldn't get them over here, and he got them all the way from America. So thanks to that, Keith. You know, I would normally, if I have a problem, I'd put it on the scope, but this is just a bit quicker. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in its place and then hook it up. So what we can now do is we can now set the fuse size. So what I'm doing is I'm just setting the amp limit to 10 amps. We can see we've got, I'm just going to lock that in now, and we can see we've got 12.2 volts, which is our battery voltage. And now what we can actually do, now this is the voltage we have going, or the amps we have going through there at the minute. So I can just leave that there and start the car. And if it goes past the actual amps, it will start bleeping and it will automatically shut off as if the fuse is blown. So it won't put any damage to the system. But what it's really good for, you can be turning things on and off. You can't really see there. You can be turning things on and off, and if you get a voltage spike, or an amperage spike, sorry, you can actually, you can see why. Just like I said, by unplugging and plugging in the system. Now all our systems are plugged in. I haven't unplugged anything. And we are okay. So that's the peak auto. The highest it's got so far is basically 3 amps, which is absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around, I'm going to wiggle everything, I'm going to wiggle all my connections, and I'm going to see, there's no point in me filming that because that's just going to be boring. If I don't come across anything, I'm going to go to all my O2 sensors, which is one here. I'm going to wiggle the wires, go back to my map sensor, just wiggle the wires, and if I'll leave the camera running just in case we capture something, but if you don't see it, it means we haven't caught anything. You'll hear this beeping anyway. So yeah, let's go around our O2 sensor here, wiggling it, wiggling our connections. Nothing, big wiring loom is in here. on the car. The minute everything kind of looks okay. Let's look at our live reading on our scan tool again. Now we've got everything back the same, and boom, look at that. We have readings from our map sensor, and O2 sensors have changed. They're switching more or less zero. So we appear to be kind of working. The engine is running better. We just give it a few stabs of the old throttle. Right, so what I'm going to do is we've definitely got something going on there now. Still not happy with everything at the minute, but I'm going to go to wiggle some more wires and see what happens. Right, I'm going to try and do this and rev it. I'm not really happy with that MAF reading. I think it should be slightly higher than what it is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it. I mean, it seems to be running a million times better. It seems to be running a million times better. I've wiggled the wires. As you can hear, the fans have just kicked in. Took it for a drive, kind of done anything, and it hasn't gone past 3 amps on that circuit. That's the highest it's gone to. So, and you know, these have been dead for a while. Like the O2's got a lot of water going through them. So are they 100%? Most probably not. Are they going to be good enough? I think it's kind of touch and go on them. After maybe a few more cycles it might be okay, we'll see. I mean, we're not getting any error codes for them in the sense that we're not getting any rich or lean conditions, so they are reading and they're not dead, so they are moving. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take off the map sensor and clean it. We're very simple, and see if the readings change. Sorted. So it's going to be very simple to take off, just a couple of dubie clips. I'm going to take that off camera and then I'll show you. We're going to have a look down, see if we can see anything. Give it a squirt of cleaner and see what happens. As you can see, you know, 1.8, it's just not doing anything. I've revved it, I've done everything, and I cannot get 3 amps is the highest I could get on that circuit. So yeah, I'm happy enough with that. I'm kind of maybe guessing, was it something to do with the water going through the O2s, which did something which popped the fuse? Possibility, I don't know, but I cannot get it to pop, and I've tried more or less everything. How much do I keep trying? You know, do I still spend a few more hours trying to get it to pop? You know, this is the problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace that with a normal fuse. I'm going to take out that. Fans just kicked in. And yeah, then we'll get to cleaning that baby. Sorted. Now, see if you can get in there. Hopefully you can see. Might not be able to see, but there is bits of crap in there. It certainly isn't clean. You can't really see, but hopefully the camera is going to pick up that. Let's get some light. Let's get the old dog and bone out for a bit of light. Try and get it in there. Bit better. Might not be able to see, but don't think it's reading 100% right, but it is. The car is driving and taking over a million times better. It only takes a little bit of crap to actually get in there to cause a problem. So I'm just going to squirt some cleaner down there, and then we're going to see. So very important though is if you do clean these, make sure these are absolutely 100% dry before you put them back. That's why when you use the proper stuff, it evaporates, because you can use brake clean, anything really, but you don't want to put it in there wet, because you can essentially blow it up, because it gets that hot in there, it will just blow up. So I'm just going to let this dry for a few minutes just to be 100% sure, put it back, and we'll go from there. Sorted. Right, taking it for a spin, and again, you know, car looks a million times better. I originally sprayed it with some carb clean, then I sprayed it with some electrical cleaner, and then I got my air gun and I blew it all out just to make sure there was no residue or anything left. It's made no difference. Let's put it that way. There's no difference on the scan tool reading, so there's no point me showing that. But what I do want to check is, I just want to check we are definitely getting full battery voltage here. The ignition is now on. As you can remember, last time we didn't. Now the light is shining up, so I know under load the system is good, but what I want to do is see how much voltage we're getting. Because if we're not getting full voltage, that could be something to do with it. We could have other issues. EGR valve can cause problems with these and all sorts, but I don't think we're having that problem. And there we go, 12.6, can you see that? 12.5, 12.6 volts, so that's absolutely perfect. I know the wiring's good, so I'm not worried about the wiring. So it's looking like the old MAF is a little bit dodgy. I'm going to tell them that. I don't know if they're going to want to do anything more with this, because obviously they've put a fortune in this. So it's working. It's not working 100% at idle, but it's certainly ticking over a lot better. It's not hunting, it's not doing anything, it's driving fine. So I'll have to wait and see what they want to do. But there is one more thing I want to check. These do have a problem with the O2 sensor. We're going to check it and get on the lift and check it. That oil kind of seeps up through the wires. Capillary reaction is the technical name for it. And that also can cause fuses to blow, O2 sensors to blow, and all sorts. These do have a lot of common problems. So I'm just going to double check that. I'm going to get it on the lift. Already checked the front one. I knew that was fine, but I want to get it on the lift and check the rear one just to be 100% sure. I'll bring you along with it. And if that's fine, then diagnosis done. Right, as you can see, I'm not going to be able to film this and do it at the same time. You can just see there in the middle of the camera where the EGR, where the O2 sensor is. You can just see the yellow paint on the connection. And what happens is the oil comes into there and starts wicking up, capillary reaction, whatever you want to call it. And believe me, it can do serious damage to ECUs, modules and everything. It can absolutely destroy it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect that to make sure there's no oil in it. If there is, well, then we're kind of in trouble, because it's depending where the oil has gone, depending what you have to replace. But if there's nothing there, I won't show you anything. I'm just showing you where the actual system, or where the plug is. Obviously we're underneath the vehicle at the minute. You can just see the drive shaft there, and then starter motor. So it's right behind the starter motor essentially. Right, just let that focus. There we go. There's the connection for the actual O2 sensor, and that's perfect. And then up here, again, I'm going to try and get the camera in. You might not be able to see it, but that connection is also perfect. So we're good. So look, that's it. This is fine. The other O2 sensor is fine. I've wiggled the wires as much as I possibly can. I've taken it down down the road. I've let it get hot and cold, and start it when it's cold, start it when it's hot. Done absolutely everything, and I cannot get more than 3 amps on that system. So there's not a lot more I can really do. I could spend another 3 or 4 hours on it and not get anywhere. So I'm going to tell the customer, the map sensor is a bit dodgy. It's working, but it's not working 100%. And to keep an eye on it, if the engine light comes back on, we'll have to then maybe get a bit more in depth. There was lots and lots of water going through these this exhaust pipe. So was that blew the fuse? You just don't know. It's just impossible to say, really, unfortunately, especially when I'm getting no spikes on the system and I've wiggled everything. Where the plastic covers go at the back of the engine, there's one at the back and there's one at the side, and there's a wire which is bent at a 90-degree angle on the top of the rock cover. Now, they normally breaks there as well, so that's another thing to look at. And I was really wiggling there to make sure there was no breaks, there was no nothing, and there was nothing, so something to keep an eye out. So what have we learned, people? Well, obviously, the first thing, most important thing is wiring diagrams. Now, it's not a be-all and end-all. I'm not saying it is. I've done other videos proving you don't need wiring diagrams, but in certain cases you do, because as you can see from this wiring diagram, from the codes we had, it was very, well, more or less instantly you could see, well, hold on a second, all these are gone. Have all them gone at the same time? Very, very unlikely they all popped at the same time. And what's the common thing between them is the power side of the circuit. They all share the same fuse. So, you know, you go to the fuse, it's a pop fuse, but just because it's a pop fuse, you need to know why the fuse is popped Don't just put a fuse in and think everything's going to be okay. So that's where wiring diagrams really do come in handy. And as you can see from the tool I used, even handy. Yes, I could put a scope on that and scope it again, or put an amp clamp. You know, there's loads of different ways of doing it. Just that tool is really quick and easy, and you can actually see the live reading, and it'll bleep if it gets too, you know, too close to it and all that sort of stuff. So that's it. So as it turns out, it was kind of an easy one, and it is always best, you know, when you're doing anything, is check your powers and grounds, because even without a wiring diagram, if you went to your map sensor or your O2 sensor or whatever sensor happens to be on your scan tool, and you check powers and grounds, and you had, as you can see, we had a perfect ground, but we had no power, well then there is a problem. But you need to get your power working to see if your component's working. Another good thing to do is, like I showed you, is to unplug the sensor you're working in, just in case it's pulling it down. Is it internally crossed inside and it's pulling the system down, or whatever the case may be. So it's always good to do an unplug test as well, just to make sure, because if you got voltage when you unplug it, you plug it back in, well then you definitely know there's a problem with that part. These are very, very simple things, people, and it can make your life so much easier. This is what we're going to be going through on my courses. You know, very simple things that's just going to make your life so much easier. Things you might not, you know, necessarily think of first, but you know, is very easy. So I'm now going to put this back together and tell the customer, and that's it, people. So that's it. Look, hope it helps. Thumbs up, share, like, subscribe, all the usual. Don't forget, links up here, links down below, but most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.